Barbara, you could start now.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Barbara Müller and I'm the Exhibition Group Director for Electronica and Productronica trade fairs worldwide. So the trade fairs you just saw in this video. On behalf of Messe München, Germany and Messe München, India, it is my great pleasure to extend a warm welcome to our esteemed panelists and the industry colleagues who have joined us today. Let me take this opportunity to thank IPCA team, Mr. Kushal Patel, President IPCA, and Mr. Thiyagarajan, Treasurer IPCA and our moderator today for joining hands with us once again to organize this webinar. The panelists today are well-known experts representing the Indian electronics industry who would share their views on the topic Renewed Outlook for PCB Design and Manufacturing Industry Post-COVID-19. I hope many pressing issues of the industry are addressed today during this webinar, and it will help everyone to prepare for the coming months. Messe München India has initiated a series of webinars to stay connected with the industry, and I would like to invite the Group Project Director of Electronica and Productronica India, Tanmay Paul, to share a few thoughts behind these initiatives. Over to you, Tanmay, and thank you once again.
Thank you, Barbara. Good morning and a warm welcome to our distinguished panelists and the industry colleagues. As we know, we are going through a tough time. We are contained in a lockdown. Some parts of the economy is getting back to work while most of us are still working from home. And in this time, we are finding our own ways to stay connected with our colleagues, partners, customers, and suppliers. We often discuss the common challenges and the way to overcome these challenges. However, our discussion is often limited to our own network. Messe München India has been bringing the businesses together through our trade fairs, and in the present situation, we are very happy to bring everybody together through a series of webinars. Through our webinar series, our attempt is to widen the scope of your discussion. The previously held webinars were on ESDM and medical electronics industry. Today is the third in the series and our focus will be on the challenges of the PCB manufacturing. Today we have with us some of the best minds in the industry, experts who are representing the topmost associations in the Indian industry, CII, IPCA. We had LCNA and ISA in the past. Some of the topmost companies are in their respective segment. These are the experts who are well aware of the present challenges of the industry, and through their associations, they have been working with the ministry to formulate strategies for the industry. Our panelists will share their perspective about creating a passage for a better future for the industry. Let me hand it over to Mr. Thiyagarajan, our moderator and member of Executive Committee IPCA, who will begin today's session by introducing the panelists to you. Over to you, Mr. Thiyagarajan.
Good morning. Welcome to this IPCA MMI organized webinar on renewed outlook for PCB design and manufacturing industry in post-COVID-19. IPCA stands for Indian Printed Circuit Association, has over 300 members of manufacturers and allied service providers. It has been the members have been manufacturing for 25 years. Still, the demand for industry is much higher than what we can produce, and there is a big opportunity for the industry to scale up, especially so in the post-COVID situation. We will hear from panelists how we can achieve that. Basically, for some of you who are not so familiar, printed circuit boards are the interface between electronic devices and their mechanical electronic components like semiconductors. PCBs are foundation for building electronic systems and largely contribute to performance of any system to deliver under different environment. PCBs are used in space, aviation, automotive, communication, consumer, healthcare products with the different build and okay, with this small introduction, I would like to introduce the panelists that we have. Let me introduce Mr. Padma Bhushan Shri Chowdhry. Ajai Chowdhry is one of the 6 founder members of HCL, a highly decorated Indian industry icon. Today he is an inspiration for young Indians. He is currently of governors at the International Institute of Information Technology in Raipur. He is also chairman of Electronic Sector Skills Council of India, ESSCA. PC is a proud promoter with other industry association and share his views. That you can take over.
Okay. Thank you, Barbara, Thiyagarajan, and Tanmay. I think we are talking about post-COVID, but COVID is with us today. So we need to also think of COVID the way it is. And a lot of people ask me this question all the time. How long is this going to last? And I always say that it's pretty uncertain. Things are not very clear. Yes, maybe we have done a little better than a lot of other countries, but I think we are still locked in and we don't know how things will pan out. And I guess it could also lead to a fact that you may have a W curve as we go forward. So you may have more times when you will be locked in inside or locked in some way or the other. So I think what is going to change that, I guess, is going to be either a vaccine or a cure, or both. And I think today, in terms of a vaccine, it's still quite far away, despite the fact that the Indian company, which is making which is the largest in the world, has decided to start manufacturing this in June. And even before the product has been approved in the UK. So I think there is looking like a good chance of having a vaccine in India pretty soon. But whether it will be as effective as you'd like it to be, whether it will be thoroughly tested, etc., we don't know. So I think the other area is whether we will have a cure. And Gilead's product seems to indicate that you may have a cure. But I think even that has not been sort of approved by everybody else all over the country, all over the world. So I think in addition to that, what we are going to face is that pretty much 60% of people out there would be asymptomatic. So what will that lead to is a question. So maybe the fear of the disease is more than the disease, but that's the way it is. And so how should various manufacturers in the PCB industry look at this whole time frame that we are looking at? And what I would like to say is that in the short term, you should see maybe 6 months and it should have a severe impact. But if you start to look at the medium term, you're looking at 8 to 12 months. And I would say that everybody should look at planning till end of next year, because when will everybody get a vaccine and who everybody will get vaccinated is a question mark. So I think till next year end, the world is going to be in a tizzy, and a lot of people out there and a lot of industries will be in pain. And if industries are in pain, we as manufacturers of PCB will also feel some bit of the pain. So I guess you will have to prepare your company to face this situation till end of next year. But so I think what will be required is that everybody will have to plan for cash and cash and cash. And as I say, cash will be king. So I think everybody should definitely look at doing that. Now, if we look at the whole opportunity that is there in front of us, and that's what we should be always looking at. Does COVID present us with any opportunity? And I think clearly all of us realize the fact that there is going to be a movement of manufacturing from China. When that movement will take place will depend on who has the pace to take it up. And till now, unfortunately, India has never shown the kind of pace that Vietnam has shown. So I think as industry, we should go out there, talk to the government, and push this whole idea of being very fast and take over that space that is been occupied for China for so long. And despite the fact that we have recently created an excellent package to get people to come and invest in India, it's been sort of limited to the phone industry, and hence the components and sub-assemblies that go into the phone industry, etc., are definitely a very attractive proposition for people. I think we need to move and talk to the government and say, I think they should open it up for all of electronics. And especially if we start to look at the change that's taking place post-COVID, there will be a lot of focus on health, and therefore there will be a lot of opportunities in anything connected to health. So I will talk about it later, but I think what will be required is that we should upgrade ourselves with a lot of skilling, and reskilling will be an essential part of the learning curve that we need to be inside. And that will be essential for the PCB industry. Now, all the opportunities will come. And I think if we are ready with saying that we can design and manufacture and, add, things will be of tremendous value as we go forward. Now, I was just thinking, if COVID is there, what is going to really work? And where will be opportunities for the industry? Fortunately, PCB is pretty much the heart of every product. And if you look at any product, there isn't except a very few. So I think electronics will be at the heart of the heart that will pump the electronics. I think there is a large opportunity that we could also get, but it will be scattered all over the place. It's not going to be one large lump that you will see. The large ones will happen because of the movement from China to India. And we can make sure that it happens and it doesn't go off to Vietnam. So I think we could see that large piece happen. But if we look at around us, what will people be doing during this period, and what will they be thinking? And I think the one thing that they will be thinking about is cleanliness. And everything clean is going to be what will be the mantra. And the other thing that they will be looking at is everything online. So online everything will be another big mantra that we have to look at. So how do we take care of these opportunities and look at where will this be? And I think the change that COVID has brought to us, which is work from home, is going to become something that will last a very long time. A lot of people will start to work from home. And I believe it will fundamentally go toward what Harvard calls work from everywhere. So I think that is going to be a very major change that will happen in the world and in India. So if you are going to work from home, where are the opportunities for the industry? Definitely more and more computing will be required at home, big screens. You can't work from small screens all the time. So yes, a lot of phones will get sold because that's all that the rural industry or rural market or smaller places will have to go for. But yes, phones will be a very big deal. Laptops will also be large because definitely you'll start to see a bigger screen laptop. You will also see more proliferation of laptops. Many years, MATE as an association has tried to make sure that PC penetration increases in the country. I think now it will happen. So as a result of work from home or work from anywhere, a lot more laptops will get sold. And therefore, PCB industry will have an opportunity. In addition to that, if you're going to work from home or work from anywhere, the VPN and the networking gear, etc., will also become large. And you will see people using more and more modems, more and more routers, and a whole bunch of stuff where PCBs are an absolute part of those. So those are the opportunities that will happen because of work from home. Another large opportunity that will happen from work from home is going to be gaming, because people will have time to themselves, and if they want to entertain themselves, one is to look at all the stuff that's available through OTT, and the other one is to look at gaming. So gaming will happen, and of course, more and more household appliances will get sold, as I see, because till now a lot of people had these maids coming at home and washing clothes and a whole bunch of stuff that they were doing. they will become more and more careful, and they will want less touch of anything. And if less touch is going to happen, definitely you will see more household appliances getting sold. And people like us, for example, I don't have too many hair, but yes, people will want that at home. So trimmers will get sold in a large way. I'm told Amazon is freaking out all over the world with selling trimmers. So all of these things are likely to change, and these are the kind of opportunities that will be there for the industry. The other large opportunity that will be there will be, as I said, maybe distributed all over the place, and you will have to somehow work on a strategy to get to these opportunities. But what is going to happen is that you will have huge bunch of disinfecting devices. And these disinfecting devices is going to be a completely new, large segment of the market. Because suddenly everybody is worried about cleanliness. So everybody is worried about not touching anything that could be infected. So what is going to happen? Fundamentally, you will see a lot of devices which will be things like mask disinfectants, PPE disinfectants, home devices for checking on parcels and phones. So people, when they receive a parcel at home from Amazon, they would like to make sure that it's clean. Today, everybody is trying to use very normal stuff, put salt in the water or use water with soap. It's a bit painful. See people using a lot of devices which will have either ozone or it will have UVC and all of that, and you will see products like that appear. You will also see offices wanting to be cleaner and disinfected. So you will see things like office disinfecting devices, and you will see office robots which will actually clean the office one shot in the morning, once in the evening, or twice in a day, or all that will happen. Similarly, hospitals need to be clean. So there'll be a whole bunch of robots floating around trying to clean hospitals, and then hotels, and then airports. So, it can be a very large market out there. And I think if you can go after some of these devices and get to these device manufacturers quickly, you will have an opportunity to sell more and more PCBs. And, you could see those kind of things happen. And of course, I've seen a lot of people in India already using a lot of drones to deliver disinfecting stuff. Today, they are using very, not the right products that they are delivering. So I think that needs to be looked at. So they're delivering chemicals which may not be very good, but it doesn't matter to the PCB industry. You could be sitting with opportunities in drones also. The next area I think I would like to touch about where opportunities are likely to be. And as I said earlier, the investment in healthcare in India is exceedingly poor. Okay. And this investment in healthcare, it cannot again wait for the next pandemic. And hence, lot more investments will take place in healthcare. Today, the government has announced, a few weeks ago, 15,000 crores for healthcare. I think that is peanuts. You will see a lot more investment in healthcare. And hence, there will be a large opportunity in medtech devices in the country. So medtech devices should flourish. And a lot of these medtech devices will be good opportunities for the PCB industry. And of course, one major area that will flourish will be telemedicine. And I think a huge amount of innovation will take place in telemedicine. Telemedicine will not be that single screen type of thing that we've seen till now, because it was not popular, it was not moving. Now, lots and lots of devices attached to computers, etc., or phones will come around. And these devices will help doctors actually test everything that you can think of through telemedicine rather than providing doctors. And the real issue is that if India's healthcare system is so poor and small locations all over the country are not going to have doctors. So if you're not going to have doctors, what's going to happen is that you will have more and more telemedicine and devices around telemedicine. So please start tracking those opportunities, because these are some things that you will have to track. It won't happen on its own, and there will be huge opportunities out there. And the last one I want to mention is that something very interesting has happened in India in the last 8 weeks, 10 weeks since COVID hit us. And that is the innovation engine in India is purring away. It's really, really doing well. As a result of that, the government, the academia, and various companies and startups have all gotten together. And you're getting approvals for products in India in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, which has never ever happened before. So suddenly we have ventilators, and I'm part of one of the startups that's created a ventilator. They moved from making robots to ventilators. And we created a ventilator in 6 weeks. And we have an approval to go forward and manufacture. So these kind of innovations are going to get sped up because a lot of these things are happening and you need to start tracking them. How do you track them? The way to track them is to go to the hubs of innovation, go to the IITs, go to the IISCs, go to the incubators, and also go to all these institutions and set up prototyping labs for PCBs. Because a lot of these innovation hubs will start to happen in a very big way. And if we can tap those very early, you would have product opportunities and inside those. So I think those are the kind of things that will happen. I think more and more AR and VR will happen. That's quite natural because a lot of places, people will not go to a shop. They would like to see from far what is happening. And how do you actually evaluate a product? It'll all happen through AR, VR, etc. So I think I just want to end up and saying that, yes, COVID is looking very difficult for the industry. It's going to be difficult for everybody. But which is the single industry that will benefit? And I think the one industry that will definitely benefit will be healthcare, wellness, and all of those. And maybe electronics. And therefore, maybe PCBs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We had input on work ethics, work from home, and innovation, and telemedicine kind of products that's coming into the market will help the industry to look positively about taking your advice and then proceed further. On to the next panelist, Mr. Vinod Sharma, Managing Director, Deki Electronics, Chairman-CII, Uttar Pradesh, current Chair C2I National ICT Committee, part Chairman C2I, working on policy advocacy and industry development in this important sector in national level. He is also the governing council member of ESSCI. So I request Mr. Sharma to take over. Before that, I'll say about a few words about his company. Deki is a pioneer in electronic component manufacture in India, starting in 1984 in collaboration with Okaya of Japan to manufacture various types of capacitors. And the country had no components manufactured at that time in the country. And to continue the lead with diversification into energy management with power role of UK. So it's one of the pioneer in electronic component manufacturing, and I request Mr. Sharma to share his views on how the electronic industry and PCB industry can grow in the post-COVID situation. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thiyagarajan, Barbara, Tanmay, MMI, IPCA. Very, very happy to be on this panel today. And I must thank Mr. Ajai Chowdhry for setting out the entire canvas of the huge opportunities that lie ahead of us. I completely believe with him, an optimist that both electronics, PCB, and all components have a fantastic future. I think we have a little rough weather in the short term, but I'm very, very hopeful that quite quickly we will come out of this and be able to make these opportunities count. What I've done is try to put my thoughts onto a small PowerPoint. I've got about 8 minutes to speak, and I think I have about 8 slides. So I'll run through them quickly, but they're largely commonsensical, so I don't think they need too much detail, but might help us to remain, sort of help us to retain some of what I'm trying to say this morning. So if you look at the crisis today, these are the several stakeholders, all of us as entrepreneurs, employers, or leaders, the employees, the supply chain partners, the customers, the state governments, which behave quite differently sometimes from the central government, where the policies are being made, the business support organizations, the BSOs, the people like IPCA itself, Alcina, CI, all of us trying to enable the business platforms, and finally, all of us as individuals who form this large society. What could be some of our expectations of how do we go through this crisis in the short term, And as Mr. Chowdhry very rightly pointed out, in the medium term, how do we still not lose track of the opportunity? So it has to be a two-step dance. While we try to survive in the short term, in the immediate term, we need to thrive, or at least aim to revive and thrive a little later. I think the first and foremost, which is quite obvious, is we need to stay positive, because definitely this is an unprecedented crisis, but it's not the end of the world. This too shall pass. We as leaders need to take charge. In many organizations, many of my colleagues I find are sounding confused, are not able to take a clear line of thinking, and unfortunately also communicating that confusion or that chaos down to their teams, which I think is something which is highly avoidable at this point of time. One doesn't have to be overly optimistic, be brutally honest, because I'm sure everybody in the team understands what the ground realities are. Be realistic, but definitely be hopeful. I would say communicate very, very clearly, as often as possible. Even a daily briefing is perfectly in place, and some organizations are doing a morning and an evening briefing, even while they're working from home or working from anywhere else. I think a key element, this I would say is a sentence which would apply to all stakeholders together, is transparency and trust. This is not business as usual. I owe to my employees to let them know what my cash reserves are, what kind of a situation I really am in. My customers need to have that transparency. What is the material? What kind of PCBs do they need today? Are they over ordering? Are they overstocking? Are they going to pay me on time, etc., etc.? So there is short-term pain, and I think it needs to be shared. And we seek participation of all stakeholders when we do this. Let's make an open appeal for that. I think the crunch for almost all companies at this point of time, barring a few, would be cash. So the old times where we had an order constraint, we had an operation constraint, we were chasing efficiencies. I think we need to leave that for some time and focus on that one constraint, which is cash. Count your cash every day, literally, and then begin to budget from there. So this, as I say in the next point, 2020 has to be an year of survival. Those of us that will survive can start looking at reviving in the next year, 21, and hopefully thrive thereafter, based on a lot of the opportunities that were just showcased a little earlier. I would recommend that we abandon all annual business plans, because I don't think they will make sense. There is no way we know which customer is going to buy what 3 months from now. We can only hope that they will all come back to normalcy somewhere between 3 and 6 months. And also the normalcy needs to be redefined. A weekly plan, which allows for dynamic decision making, where we try to make this week slightly better than the last one, with a very, very agile team that can get into a huddle very quickly on one of these virtual platforms, make decisions and move on for the next week, I think would be a much better way to deal with business. There are opportunities in the medium term, and as I said, let's not miss that boat. So we will have to do this two-step dance. Keep an eye on the middle term, start working towards that, start planning, seeking joint venture partners. As Mr. Chowdhry said, it could be an academic partnership with one of these IISCs or IIITs or IITs, to see what is the innovation smorgasbord there and what can we pick from that and convert into. So while we are component makers, there's nothing that stops us from being able to understand and engage with the product business, and that's the best way to be into that thing. And finally, as I say, seek joint ventures in component, especially in component manufacturing. In the government slide, I will talk about a few good schemes that have been announced recently. What is our message to the employees of the team? Be a part of the solution. As you know, we have enough problems already. Let's share the sacrifice through these tough times. It's basically a reset. So all standard operating procedures are being reset. All operations, all costs, all plans need to be reviewed. And hence the old budget is practically scrapped. Let's rethink, and an example of that is operations. Why do we have to have 8-hour shifts running 3 shifts into 24 hours, as most of us in the component business do? Can we have 12-hour shifts and make people work only for 4 days? So they work Monday, Tuesday, and get an off on Wednesday. And the third shift that was off on Monday and then comes into play on Wednesday. So everybody works 2 days, gets an off, and works 2 days again, gets another off. Now, and this would reduce our footprint on environment, on the traffic, on the travel times, and also the number of people that are within a premise at any point of time. I haven't taken the current 1-hour break that is mandated into account, but I'm sure that we can work a way around that. Similarly, in the office, we could have two teams working odd even days, while one team is working from home, the other team is in the offices actually doing what needs to be done there. Finally, a culture of safety, because this whole hygiene, cleanliness, safety has to become a culture amongst us, and it cannot be the responsibility of the HR, the admin, or the EHS team in every company. We need to take this up, step up, and be counted, and make sure that we, I know I'm a member of a club where I'm always delighted that every time somebody parks in a wrong parking slot, it doesn't have to be the security guard who comes and tells you. Another member tells that person, sorry, you're not allowed to park here. So I think it's that kind of culture we need to bring, where every member begins to understand what safety means. Did you wash your hands? Have you sanitized? Are you keeping safe distance, etc.? And then finally, this is a time for ideas and innovative solutions. I couldn't agree more with Mr. Ajai Chowdhry, where we see a spurt of this, and I'm sure our team members have this. As leaders, we need to create a culture and a standard operating procedure where such innovations are taken in and actually put into some projects, and also that we have an environment that allows that to happen. Very quickly, at supply chain partners, we've used this term partner very loosely, very much in the often. I think for once, if we don't treat them as partners, it's really to our own peril. What does that mean? We need to be transparent again. When can I pay you? Can you give me small packages because I can't pay for a big one today? The delivery schedules. Don't give me a date just out of your hat, but give me a very, very clear date. On quality, I mean, we hope that supply chain partners will not take shortcuts at this point of time. For example, for 6 or 8 weeks, our raw material is lying in our stores. A lot of that might have expired. Let's not take shortcuts by using such a material and not knowing what the impact of that would be, because that could be disastrous on a supply chain. Now, these are all very, very commonsensical points, as I said, but I do think that they're worth mentioning here. Let's prefer vendors that are giving us shorter lead times. Obviously, hence, a vendor that is closer to home is certainly better. And let's be as as buyers of products, both components or raw material. Let us also exercise a little preference for people who are located closer, Indian suppliers, and which means that we may have to pay a little more. But I think it's a strategic call. In the long run, I think we would benefit with that kind of an option. What do we expect from our customers? Definitely, they are looking at de-risking, the whole geo de-risking. This happened even pre-COVID, before it hit our shores. We know that China as a single source have become extremely risky. We're not getting information. So this China plus one strategy that's been spoken about for a long, long time, I think there is also an anti-China sentiment. I wouldn't read too much into that, except that there is definitely an opportunity where manufacturing is going to move closer to its markets. And that's not necessarily India. Let's not just sit back and hope and expect that everybody's just going to do that. The government will do what they have to do. But as industry, I think we need to start making those plans of attracting those, maybe their joint ventures, and understanding from a fundamental perspective that no more are enterprises competitive. I don't think there's one company that can be competitive. Today, a telecom company in India cannot be competitive versus Huawei in China, because we compete with the entire ecosystem that's called Huawei. That includes their government, it includes all the enablers, includes the financial ecosystem around Huawei, the research, the academics around it. So if we try to be a company that can beat that ecosystem, we would be mistaken. So hence, we need to carry our supply chains together and the entire ecosystem, I would say, if we have any chance at being competitive. Again, transparency and regular communication. Unfortunately, Indian customers don't display, as we all know, a disciplined payment behavior. They were not doing that in the past, and I hope that they will have a change of heart now, because otherwise we will all stand to lose. Finally, I think the days of exploiting our supply chains are over. Let's begin to enable them. A great example, and I always use this, is Maruti, to my mind, one of the only examples we have in this country, where 30 years ago, they decided to start making cars in India. But at the same time, they first began to develop an ecosystem of suppliers from scratch. And today, I think the reason that they still command a 50% market share, at least before the COVID crisis, is partly because they have a very, very strong ecosystem. The same as we know in, the one competitive factor that we cannot beat China against in a short term is the fact that they have the most robust supply chain for electronics possible in the world. And so unless we begin to think in those terms together, I don't see a chance of surviving. let me quickly turn now to the governments, which I was supposed to speak about more. They need to help us to restart. What we have seen is a lack of trust and a lack of respect at the moment for the entrepreneur. And I'm being very upfront about this because while the Prime Minister and his office and the ministers in the cabinet have all been very clear, I think they've been very, very open to all sorts of, they've been listening very carefully. They've been planning well. At the chief minister level, also this is getting echoed and we get very positive vibes. But as we all know, all who have tried to open our plants in the last week or 10 days, that it's at the DM, the district magistrate level, or the DIC, the district industries commissioner level, that things seem to be very, very confused. We're getting very different, guidelines on a daily basis. In UP, I can tell you my plant is in Noida. Literally in the last 4 days, the situation has changed from being permission with a lot of caveats to last evening, it has become no permission is required. You can just apply and give an undertaking and carry on. Yet the notification not issued as of this morning. So there is a lot of loss in translation. I think it is a temporary thing. We will give it to them. But I do hope that in a week's time, and UP is really up their game, which I think is a phenomenal unprecedented kind of incentive that is being given to all of us, that for 1,000 days, they don't want to apply most of the labor laws except 4 of them. And I think that makes a lot of sense, both for companies trying to revive businesses and also companies trying to look at Noida, UP or India as a destination, because one of our banes has been this complexity of laws that we have. So I think they made a very good start by suspending all these laws for about 1,000 days. We are awaiting the clear guidelines on that. But the sense is that this is very, very welcome. There was, right in the beginning, 10 days ago, a notice that told a lot of us from the MHA also, which was fortunately corrected, about coercive action being taken if people don't pay on time, 7th, etc., etc. I think this was also a result of buck passing. Somebody on the top wants to sound good, and someone at the real, cutting ground level wants to make sure that he's not held responsible. I hope that that is going to change, and that's my message to them. At the same time, I think state governments need to also plan well for this medium-term opportunities. I'm very happy to see that UP has taken a step forward already, as I mentioned. The central government, I would say, congratulations to them, because they have really, for the last 1 year or 2, or even before that, been getting their act together. And one of the areas they've got really their act together is the mobile phone business. First, by putting a 20% tariff when even WTO we were challenged at that. Still, the government took this very bold step, saying that doesn't matter. We will try and at least set up an assembly of mobile phones. Next to it, the phased manufacturing program came in, and we know that some items, especially things like chargers, have started getting done here. Now in the PMP, the third stage of the components getting in is coming on, and we all need to get engaged. Towards that, the government has, before that I would say, of course, as far as the saving livelihoods so far has gone well, and I keep my fingers crossed when I say that, but the objective 2, which is of saving livelihoods, is floundering a little bit, and I hope that in a week or 2, we will be back to a semblance of professionalism in decision-making and in communicating those things. Finally, I'd like to thank the government for 3 schemes that have recently been announced. The production-linked incentive scheme, as you know, this gives between 6 and 4% incentive on the turnover directly, provided you meet with certain thresholds. Now, this is primarily a scheme for mobile phones, but also some components have kind of found entry at the last minute into that scheme. I think we should make use of it. There is, however, a problem at the moment there that, at least I would say that to the most participants on this webinar, is that the current threshold for components is 100 crores, which means you need to make an investment of 100 crores in 3 years. I know that's a lot of money for a lot of us. So we have appealed to the government, to the minister also, to bring it down to about 20 crores, as has been done for domestic mobile phone manufacturers. If that happens, I think we have a lot of scheme. I will quickly run through specs. We know is an MSIPS 2, but only for components. And that does not have those heavy thresholds. The thresholds are very low, and we can apply for 25% capital grant there. And finally, the electronic manufacturing cluster scheme 2, which is basically going to be a little more public sector, state government driven, but also requires a large player to take the anchor unit position. And I think these all augur extremely well. There are some tweaks required, as I said. Interest subvention, credit guarantee are being worked on. And I believe a very, very good policy for semiconductors is underway right now. So I think from the central government side, I would say we are quite satisfied with the way these things are moving. What do we expect from business support organizations? Thank you for stepping up. I think I see webinars like this. All of us are trying to do what best we can. Obviously, this is a time to help us, and you're doing a great job of that. Largely at this time, what we need is clear information. And in the medium term, what you could support is what I would call these opportunity desks. A Taiwanese company wanting to come into India wants to talk to one person or one desk, and let's facilitate that, and connect them with Invest Indias, with the state governments, with the bodies that can help them, and with entrepreneurs like us who can take that opportunity forward. And finally, this is my last slide. As individuals, I think we need to, as Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change that you wish to see. We are all enjoying the clean air and all these nice pictures of dolphins and in the Ganges and stuff like that. Obviously, we have damaged the nature to a very, very large extent. Nature is resetting. So there is, I think, some message I have for all of us there. Consume what we need, not everything we want, as is happening in these lockdown days. Let's buy not based on what we can afford, but what we really require. As I like to say, cash can be printed. Many countries are doing that, and we're hoping that the Indian government will do that too. But natural resources are limited. Those you cannot print, they are definitely running out. It's time to review, rethink, and reset everything we do. I would say let the crisis not go to waste. Every crisis and challenge comes to teach us something as teams, as families, as countries. And if we don't learn that lesson, then as I warned you even in an earlier article, if not COVID-19, then we'll have to wait for a morbid 25 that will definitely teach us the lesson that we don't want to learn. Thank you very much. Sorry, I think I exceeded my time by about 2 minutes. I hope this was useful.
Thank you, Mr. Vinod. Your inputs as an experienced entrepreneur and successful person has shown in the industry what we can forward the government policies. And at this point of time, I'll take a few questions. Mr. Because we have a lot of questions, and just take 2 questions right now as we are running out of little bit time. So one of the first question from thing is, to scale up production and build mass manufacturing facility, JVs plays a vital role. What do you see should be the Indian industry approach for going JV in this sector? I think you already mentioned about having to go to the industry and get more JV. Please give your input, sir.
Yeah.
This is Mr. Ajai Chowdhry to answer that because he has got the appointment to catch up.
Sure.
Said yes, look at JVs, but be very cautious and do it the right way. I have great experience of running JVs, and when I was entering into my first JV, and we were very gung-ho, we said everything will be good, we are all looking at the same approach, and we look like great partners. And all that happens when the sunrise happens. You know? And I think you must be also, you'll also be very positive when you enter into a relationship. Advice from me would be that when you actually do a agreement for a joint venture, puts inside a sunrise clause. What is a sunrise clause? A sunrise clause is when somebody from outside is coming into the country, they want the market, you have the market, you have the knowledge of the market. So take some price for it. Don't give. Okay. So think of a sunrise model where if they come in, they definitely pay a good value for the share. Undercut yourself. Okay. So sunrise clause has to be there in your agreement. The clause that I would like you to put is to put a sunset clause. Remember one thing, it's very well known that JVs typically last 6 to 7 years. Okay, so please put a sunset clause, and in that you put in, if we actually walk out from this joint venture, what will you get? Please put it down, because you are the one who's enabling an organization to enter India. You are the one who's creating the market with them. So therefore, please have a sunset clause also. It may be of any kind, but what it should do is it should protect you. It should not be a situation when you are left high and dry. Okay, it's happened to many joint ventures. You can see McDonald's. The guy created the whole market, and then these people didn't want to pay anything for it. So have a look at both these clauses. And one thing I want to mention, which my guru used to say, that is Dr. C.K. Prahlad, he used to say, he used to define joint ventures. And he said the way he defined joint ventures was one bed, two dreams. Okay, so anything else?
Yeah, I have one more question. Looking into present scenario and future expectation of market and industry, what is your message to top management in the Indian sector? Should we invest? Should we go forward, expand, or of the money at this point of time?
Well, actually, it's a tough question because, as I said in the beginning, there's a huge amount of uncertainty around. So you will have to be careful in taking any of these decisions. Next 6 months, I think I would suggest that you be very watchful. Following 12 months, start to look at more deeply as the opportunities come. As I said, grab the opportunities that are around us due to COVID. If you are able to grab those opportunities due to COVID, then go forward. Don't be scared, because this could be the time for you to be part of the direction of the wave that it's going to take in terms of post-COVID.
Thank you, sir. I also finished with the two questions with Mr. Vinod Sharma. How do you see the prospects for SMEs in post-COVID situation, especially these companies of smaller size, as always in trouble, the first level, whenever there is a situation like this? What is their prospects?
Yeah, I think the brutal reality is that a lot of us will face the toughest challenge that we faced so far in our lives. We have customers who may not pay us what they owe us. And unfortunately, that includes a lot of government bodies who are not being paid on time. We need to make all the efforts that are possible. There are some of us are in areas where the final product line itself may dry out, or our customers itself will not be in great shape, and we need to quickly move out of that area. So similarly with employees, we won't be able to take a decision very quickly. So I think this is one of the toughest challenges that we can face. Having said that, I have great faith in the fact that most of us, in fact, it was, I think it was Tom Peters, and I like to quote this many years ago in one of his surveys. He was hired by a very large American multinational company, Fortune 500, that hired his consulting to find out why is it that in every single sector that this large company was present, smaller companies were beating them in efficiency, in profitability, in market shares. And so this Tom Peters put in some 300 people on the field in those days. It was a question of field service, and he had a lot of interns going out on the field trying to get the answer. On the second day, a young girl, an MBA student, sent him a fax saying, "Tom, I found the answer from an SME entrepreneur. He says we win because we have to." And so to some extent, I think what we have to have faith in the fact that this is all we have. So we will put our best foot forward at the moment. We will become a very nimble, agile organization without having, silos. We won't behave like a government organization where different departments are pushing the buck onto each other. So I think this is a time for us to sort of reinvent ourselves, get far more efficient than we've been. But most important, I'd like to say, on a weekly basis, have one target for them. These two customers, I want the money. This one customer, I want a delivery to be done. This one raw material, I want to be delivered to myself. Survive. These 6 months are going to be hard. I have no softer way of saying this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Now I move on to the next panelist. We'll take the application of PCB, and we take 2 speakers. One from the automotive, which are the leading market segment for the electronics today in the country. And next is the metal electronics. I have Mr. Dinesh, Head of Engineering from Precall Limited, Coimbatore. So Dinesh is a senior R&D product development professional with wealth of experience, having dealt with the leading companies, Tata Motors, Mercedes, BMW, Renault. He lived in Germany and Spain on project assignments. I can be sure that, those are the days that he was away from this COVID crisis in Europe. Okay. Precall Limited is a leading manufacturer of automotive instruments with 11 manufacturing facilities across the globe, over 5,000 employees. Precall, over the years, have diversified into manufacturing over 2,000 different product variants for the automotive industry, one of the best innovative company in the automotive sector. So I would request Mr. Dinesh to restrict the timing because we are slightly running the time slot. Mr. Dinesh, please take over.
Yes. Good morning, all. Good morning, Mr. Thiyagarajan. Thanks for my entry into this is very fast track, so I got little time. Yes, I try to make a few things which I feel we have to bring it to this panelist or this forum, which may be beneficial to the all industries across. See, I belong to Precall. Yes, as you rightly said, Precall is a pioneer in instrumentations, and they serve two-wheelers. I mean, they have been the single source supplier for several years or maybe few decades. Then yes, with the competition coming in and barging into their business, the status has come down, but yes, the volume still remained high with few. There is very, very strategic customers. And the product innovations varies from the latest, the connected cars, when you say telematics, to the next gen infotainment, or contributing to the EV side, and also into the the ADAS, I mean, which is upcoming in India. But yes, we are hopeful that all these things, though it gets some pause time, but it will definitely restart. Very soon. We are, sorry, I take 2 minutes just to tell about Precall. We are into everywhere, two-wheeler, three-wheeler, if you say off-road vehicles, if you read if you say passenger vehicles, commercial vehicles. We have close to 2,000 variants of the products and close to 50 patents we have on our name. So that's why we are standing still tall. Yes, this situation has it has pushed everybody else, and also it has pushed back us as well, because just before COVID was happening, maybe the last 12 months have been kind of rigorous working in BS6 migration for the whole auto ecosystems. It was a huge investment people have made, thinking that yes, that migration happens from April 1st week, and yes, all this business encashment and revenue, the rotation, everything happens. So during that process, many industries have spent their cash on the much needed business. And yes, when we're all gearing up for volume growth of maybe 40-50 for the upcoming years, suddenly we are attacked with these situations. So things have been kind of come back to the position where we maybe have to restart, rethink, and re-innovate and rework together as an ecosystems to build the case again with the same mindset what we have built for the several years. Yeah, I mean, this is really has put a lot of challenges for us. Though some of the industries in India have been starting their operation this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, based on some communication gap or the approval, all these things. But still, the challenge for the business or industries to bring back the 100% workforce with the same state of mind, because you will never know who, what, when, in what state of mind some of the employees are. That has become a very, very, very critical challenge for even HR of the the complete the industry or across the industry, to talk to them and give them confidence and bring back as well as possible 100% workforce and motivating them. And yes, obviously there's a shortage of workforce because it is not only auto manufacturing industry is not only the skilled labor work. There are also equal amount of the unskilled labors are the part of our the skilled workforce retention and fixed cost management during this shutdown. I mean, shutdown means it is nothing. I was seeing one of the XLS file one of my friend has shared through WhatsApp. He has made a nice case study. When you stop operation, how spending fixed cost during that time will eat your the complete profits, the complete revenues, and how it can take you to the zero cash in no time. So these are all known things. It slowly we will have to gear up for bringing that or building that. And yes, the painest area for at least tier ones, I believe it is same for in the OEM also. There is no plan for BS6 investment recovery now, because you never know how long it will take to restart the operation, to stabilize it, to come back to the the same way, and no clarity on the bounce back time. And there are some the product pricing stock clearance strategy OEMs are working with dealers, which may be painful for tier ones, because that all these cost pressure straight away passed on to the tier ones. Then high-end technology integrations with the high cost pressures and the shortage of key components, because we have, I mean, especially in Indian manufacturing industry, we heavily dependent upon China, the component markets. And we know, I think every corner you go in India, every manufacturing industries are shortage of components. And more load on components and some component suppliers for backlog clearance. And yes, it may really lead to quality issues, because the more and more we start pushing. And there has been a massive supply chain disruptions and logistics problems. Yes, having all this said, that I would say the PCB, I mean, in auto industry, that has become the heart of the vehicle now. Without that, you can't realize any functions, any features, or any technology which you can take it to, be it a passenger vehicles, be it a commercial, off-road, any the vehicle if you consider. So the challenge is there. And even today, I will, if I have to share some of the ongoing, the tussle, I have everything, but I don't have PCBs to make, my products. And there is a, high shortage of PCBs because of components and, all these, the sub-components. Yeah, obviously the opportunities are ahead of us. We all know how the global EV vehicle trend is going. And yes, since we work very, very closely with OEMs, at least as on, whatever data we can gather, by 2026, close to 1,006 EV models are planned to launch across the globe. And we'll have to eagerly see maybe how much India will take the benefit of that, how our infrastructure, because we have a BS6 also still getting into the market. So this is still a big question in India. And the ADAS, connected cars, and ADAS definitely in India, we all hope that it will reach level 3 by 2025, and heads-up display and connected services. When I say all these things, it's an opportunity for the PCB makers. Be it the technology integrations. Yes, when I say opportunity, it also comes with a lot of the pain areas, because of the cost drive, there are a lot of technologies are being integrated, be it BLE, your GSM, low frequency, high frequency. Earlier it used to be a single separate entity. Now everything coming in one board, because they have a space constraint, they have a weight reduction challenge. The OEMs, they have a cost reduction challenge, and this straight away translate into as a PCB challenge. I think we have to gear up in that. Industry 4.0, maybe slightly people would start pushing, more now in these scenarios. New norm leading to work from home. I think now every manufacturing industry is thinking, because it was never been the case in the manufacturing industry, at least work from the home. It was mostly confined to IT industries. Yes, every manufacturing industry is extending that possibilities. And yes, that is the way I believe, we can go ahead, because in this 33-50% turnover in the office, 50% definitely, HR and our IT, the industry IT, the vertical, they can make just 50% to work from the home, so that full strength will be available. And yes, I think, it is an opportunity for India also to move away from input-based system to support-based systems, because we have to get into the manufacturing of some of the key parts and components. Economy scale up, yes, it is an opportunity to build a more resilient and diversified economy, even at global level. They can look at India. Yes, people are also highly migrating towards the industry have to take some initiatives to bring back the major strength to India. And efficient supply chain building that requires infrastructure. The opportunities are going to be there, but yes, how long and when we have to take up this and migrate towards that, that is still, I would say, not clear to many industries. How the next actions, how the next 3-4 months action it would be. Everybody talked about plan A, B, C, because I have heard people talking about only 2 plans. Now it is going up to C, D also. If it opens in August, how it will happen? If it, the full manufacturing, starts in September, what would happen? Yeah, for us, journey ahead is huge, because yes, there is a clarity we're all waiting for. But yes, looking at the past, the journey we have made, we want to pioneer in automotive industries, driver informations, telematics, and the infotainment side. And yes, when I say this goes across your vehicles, be it EV vehicles, be it your normal IC engine vehicle, or you take it to your off-road vehicles, two-wheelers, because there are a lot of technological the handshaking happens across the domain. But yes, specifically, yes, we have to grab the opportunity of maybe getting into the EV specific components and e-cockpit kind of systems, which we are already partner with some of the technology partners for OEMs, where we are collaboratively working on such things. So all these things are straight away going as a challenge in terms of the electronics, the PCBs, and the design and manufacturing. So with this, I think I have taken precise time, or maybe a little less, 1 minute less. So with this, I would say yes, I have come to end of this my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Dinesh. I think your valuable inputs on supply mindset is something very important when you're looking at large-scale manufacturing. Into cash flow is going to be a critical factor, but I'm sure that industry will benefit from the technology trends that you are setting forth in terms of e-vehicles. Okay. Next, I will take on Mr. Sunil, if he's available. So Ramakrishna from GE will join us shortly.
Mr. Thiyagarajan, this is Ramakrishna on the line.
Oh, very good. Welcome, sir. Can you get connected to us?
I tried to avoid the video bandwidth, Thiyagarajan, because I have a number of calls going on. So if you can pardon me, I just keep the video out.
Fine. Okay. I'll go with the introduction and then invite you to the thing. So give me a second. Mr. Ramakrishna Rao, Senior Director Engineering at GE Healthcare and leads anesthetics, respiratory. Ramakrishna joined GE Research Center in 2000 after graduating from IIT Madras. He has lectured in product development. He has filed 18 patents and published 32 papers. Received several awards, namely Edison Engineering Award, the Bhushan Award, Robert N. Hall Award. Ramakrishna also leads GE Bangalore CSR activities, where he and his team involved in lake regeneration, exposed on underprivileged children in science programs, and several other activities. I must say that he's been very kind enough to accept this invitation at the last minute because he had a very tight schedule. I request Mr. Ramakrishna to go ahead and present about the market opportunity in the medical area.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Thiyagarajan, and I think good morning and good afternoon, because already we crossed 12 past, so I'd say good afternoon. Good afternoon to all the panel members and elite industry members here. Yeah, I mean, the call came yesterday evening that there is something of this kind, and they requested to be here. Yes, first of all, thank you for giving us the opportunity. And second thing is, I think I heard about a lot of people talking about the COVID situation and this entire industry going through. I think aeroplanes are down, transportation is down. So the lot of the medical device industry is better. I mean, segments very specifically. I think most of you know, last several weeks, everybody comes with a ventilator design. The next day in the morning, innovations are very good, and these innovations actually thrive a lot of passion, positiveness across the organizations. That's really good momentum we see. And people do understand right now the safety of medical devices. It is not just medical devices requirement went up, and the need of these basic medical devices is also very well understood in India. Because every country become, I mean, the numbers of medical devices and medical beds they require. First, basic facility and the infrastructure has to be uplifted in terms of the medical beds. And second thing is when you have the beds, you need to have devices that could monitor the patient quite regularly. And third thing is if you want to make the patient to be ventilated because of situation of COVID-19, a lot of reports that ventilators has to be used in critical conditions. That means you need to have a sophisticated or a ventilator that basically helps the patients to ventilate very well. So there are lots of news is going on across, I mean, from west to east and everywhere. And with this, what's happening is the ventilator industry or the medical industry, which is supplying, let us say, X number of devices per week or per month, suddenly it went up 10x to 100x, right? The fundamental to any of these medical devices is the electronics, right? If I take the raw material, if I divide the fundamental into 4 different sections, the first section is the raw material, from the bare PCB to components, and third thing is a skilled workers and labor and the machinery and the equipment. And the fourth important piece is basically how quickly you qualify some of these designs and designers. And the fifth one is basically scalability, right? All the 4 factors are very critical at any given point of time. But right now what we hear is the demand is skyrocketing within no time, right? So you have a supply chain challenges, a logistic challenges is one end. And second thing is the demand is skyrocketing in pockets of the field. is second thing. And third thing is, how do you really make a safe and reliable qualitative product? There are three things which is COVID-19, post-COVID-19, everybody would learn, and each industry and each design house will have their own learnings, and they basically apply those things very carefully. But what is more important here is, when you have this medical devices requirements goes up heavily, and every government and every region wanted those devices in umpteen number, the sole supply, the source of the material is only cornered at one location. I mean, predominantly China was supplying the bare PCB materials and those things, which used in medical industry because of the quality nature of the materials and all those things. Maybe that spectrum maybe go or change going forward, right? You may not concentrate and depend upon maybe a region or a source. You may need to look into, every region should have those kind of capability of getting this raw material up. That's one important thing may come up soon. And that's the biggest opportunity in India too. And the second thing is the component availability. I mean, most of the medical devices use some components are very specific, sophisticated. There is strict guidelines in terms of their compliance to the functionality and the quality. That means, so it is not just actually building the components. How do you build the components which are reliable and qualitative in locally is very, very important. That's the second thing I think the industry may be locally focused, which is focused heavily towards mobile engineering today, or the iPads, or the laptop industry, or several sectors other than PCB industry. But how do you shift the gear from the regular, appliance, regular market to the medical market? What kind of precautions industry should take in terms of component development, PCB development would be a great opportunity for any region, especially for India. And third thing is, a lot of skill set is required when you want to develop this medical devices, medical PCBs, in terms of testing skills. Upskilling is very important. I think the gentleman previously spoke about very, very clearly, the upskilling and reskilling is going to be quite important. And we need to have the whole, I think the IITs, ACs, and all these people, we should also see how do we develop these products more innovatively and more low cost point of view. At the same time, less serviceability and more quality. So that will drive the innovation. That will also drive the skill set in developing the medical products. So those are three. That's the third dimension I see, which is going forward, which come out. The fourth dimension, scalability, right? See, you achieve all these things. If you're not able to scale, that is where you miss the market. I think somebody spoke about Vietnam is basically gearing up right now much faster compared to we gear up right now. Yeah, every country want to jump in and take the opportunity, but I think the basic infrastructure elements of these things we should build much stronger. Thereby, we could definitely be a place where we could do a lot of things from this country. So, I mean, for my experience, last 9 weeks, entire my team is working. I would say more than 16 hours in these challenging times. Every day we make issues with the component availability, the PCB availability, logistics we see challenging. So we are living with these challenges. That's where I'm giving you my examples. Being in industry right now, providing a lot of healthcare equipment across the globe. So there are challenges what I see. I think first thing is, how do we build raw material industry itself here, thereby we could make the best PCBs from this country. And second thing is, how do you build the components availability in this country? It is not just for automobile sector or mobile industry. How do we switch, how do we learn from that industry, and how do we apply to medical industry in terms of compliance and standards and safety? That's one of the important shifts maybe we need to look into. The third important piece is basically, how do you upskill and reskill, thereby we could do efficient product development, not just a PCB, a device full product development. And the fourth thing is basically scalability. There's the 4 points which I would like to touch upon from the medical device industry perspective. And these 4 areas would go into shape and over a period of time in a different way, like what we see currently. I mean, how it may look in future, it's very hard to predict at this point of time, but definitely there will be a lot of shifting things will happen. Could we basically up and take that opportunity for ourselves is a question we need to ask ourselves. With this, I would just leave it, sir. Thiyagarajan. Thank you for giving the opportunity. Any questions, I could take it up.
Will be available for some time. I'll just take the questions little to that.
I will be online.
Is one of the best in from vertical like medical industries to work. On to Mr. Sunil Banwari from AT&S.
Okay, hello everybody. Can you see what
Managing Director and Chief Operating Officer at AT&S India experience. Can you see? Can I go ahead?
Yes,
okay?
please. Yeah, continue.
Yeah. Mr. Banwari has more than 2 decades of global leadership experience in electronics and semiconductor operations. Leader in Lean, Industry 4.0, Six Sigma, M&A, TQM, supply chain, and sourcing. Okay. About AT&S is one of the globally leading manufacturer of high-value printed circuit boards and IC substrates, and has global presence with over 9,500 employees worldwide. Now on to Mr. Sunil Banwari to take on.
Thank you, Mr. Thiyagarajan. So I will be quick in the interest of time. So as pointed out, I think we are #1 high-end producer worldwide, and we are also in India. We are #1. We are fortunate to have a presence in China and some other countries which were mentioned earlier. So we know what the global competition looks like, and in spite of that, I think we are showing that India can compete favorably with the world. So with that, I will go to the next page. You can see again the global footprint. We are in India. We are 2 places in China, in Korea, and then of course, Austria is our headquarters. So what are the key learnings for COVID as far as in AT&S India is concerned? I think, again, I know that discussions about post-COVID, but I think as another presenter pointed out, we are still in COVID, so we can't help talking about what happens during COVID as well. So I will talk about pre-COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID. But the challenge we saw was basically we are in Mysore, and the factory next to us had a COVID-19 outbreak, which happened to be top 10 in the country. It was also the #1 in Karnataka, the top COVID cluster, and it accounted for 70% of all cases in Mysore. Again, all this action was happening within 600 meters from our factory. So that had put us in a really difficult situation as far as you can imagine all the factors that play from people in the villages not able to come to work due to the village panchayat not letting them come to work. Even the police is letting us come because we were manufacturing essential devices, but the villagers had barricaded the roads. So you can imagine all kinds of challenges with the seal down. So what we did, before this, we had a robust business continuity plan, but I would be lying if I said the robust plan anticipated this scenario. So during COVID, the tactical actions we took was immediately we changed the focus of the factory from automotive and industrial to medical products, which have been talked about a lot. For us, technology is not an issue because as I said earlier, we are a top #1 in high-end PCBs worldwide. So we were able to quickly adapt to the demand for ventilators. We already shipped, during the first month of the lockdown, we shipped PCBs worth 10,000 ventilators to BEL and Scanray. And we are doing the same again this month. So with that focus change, which was a dynamic change, because although on paper our charter is medical, we were hardly doing any medical. So this transition obviously came with some learning, but we grabbed the opportunity to contribute to the government of Karnataka COVID emergency response team. And we were basically working closely with various OEMs to make it happen. To do this, we had to exclude employees from the red zone. In fact, they're around a third of my workforce. They're still not able to come to work. We identified alternate routing, which got very creative on how to get people to come to work. Some of them, we had them stationed on site. And we came up with a combination of various things, incentives, and so on to make sure we didn't miss this chance to contribute to the national mission. So that's all the actions we did, which we are still doing during COVID. But really the key learnings, which I think the team is interested in, is what do you do post-COVID? Which is the next page. So I think what the industry needs to do fundamentally, and this is our learning again, is I think in India, if you look at our PCB industry, we are a bit unique and with due respect, I think a lot of very few companies in our PCB industry in India are doing high-end PCBs. Most of what we do in India is the low-end, single layer, double-sided. So to do multi-layer, for instance, for the ventilator product we delivered to BEL, we had an 8-layer PCB. So clearly we will need to up our technology. It also takes care a bit of the competition because there is not as much dumping going on by some of the countries in the high-end PCB compared to the low-end PCBs. As someone pointed out earlier, medical sectors is a growth area. So we will definitely, we had to reorient and grab the opportunities because the traditional opportunities like automotive, especially industrial, is in a world of hurt. It's not clear some of the businesses will come back to the full pre-production, pre-COVID levels. So diversification is key. As far as within the operations, what PCB supply companies need to do, manufacturers need to relay out the production with emphasis on social distancing. I think if anybody who knows anything about lean manufacturing tells you that we have to minimize wastage of space and everything else. So everything we are doing on social distancing is counter to that, but we have to do it if we are to survive. So again, it's a lean manufacturing, but with a twist on social distancing and also things like avoiding the use of centralized air conditioning. Now we need to do that. As you know, a lot of the materials we use in our PCB process require us to have chemicals which are stored. The processes have to be run at like 10 degrees. So clearly when you're running a clean room at 10 degrees out of central air conditioning, you also have to comfort your employees that their health is not at risk. So again, some challenges which you see in the process. Supply chain dependency on China alone for laminates and chemicals. I think that was definitely a concern industry-wide since we don't have a supply chain. And again, we have to collaborate through IPCA, which we are doing on an ESTM cluster. One of the ones being discussed is in Mysore for raw materials where laminates are made in India. This will also help us become more competitive. Government incentives for Make in India, which was referenced earlier, I think needs to, again, that especially on medicals, we have a chance to be a leader worldwide. And what the government has done is good so far. Again, just need to continue. I think the reforms the government is making on labor, I saw the announcement from Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. I think those labor reforms will also go a long ways to make us competitive because, again, the current labor laws in India are a big factor in us not being competitive. We also need to proceed where there is dumping. There is clear evidence, I think in the IPCA we have agreed that there are competitors we know who are selling their product below our material cost. When there are competitors who sell below material cost, there's no way you can be competitive no matter what you do inside your factory. So that's something we are collaborating on. And finally, I think this is something close to my heart on efficient production schemes, which are suited to the new reality. So I think the labor laws have been relaxed in at least 6 states in India, where 12-hour scheme is now being favored without overtime. So the normal practice to do 12-hour shift is 8 hours plus 4 hours overtime. But now the government has agreed in at least 5 states to allow 12-hour shift with no overtime. I think this might be helpful because at least one of the COVID laws regulations is around having a 1-hour break between shifts. Now, to have a 1-hour break between shifts, if you have 3 shifts, it's harder to do when you than if you have then if you have 2 12-hour shifts. But again, I think many PCB companies are able to qualify for continuous processing industry exemption. If you do that, you don't need to do the 1-hour separation between shifts. So in that case, you can still stay with the 8-hour. And personally, I think for my factories, we are leaning towards the 8-hour shift because at least from some benchmarking from our European facility is using the N95 surgical mask for 12 hours at a time is a challenge. And again, you don't want them to take off the mask. You also don't want them to be less focused on quality because of the difficulty of wearing masks for a continuous duration. So again, that's something we have some learning on, and I think all industries are learning to adapt to the new reality of post-COVID. So I think that's in a nutshell what I just wanted to cover some of the key challenges. Again, this is not comprehensive, and we will learn as we go along. But I think we are learning together in IPCA, and definitely we will overcome. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sunil Banwari. Input as a leading manufacturer of PCB will help us, especially you have seen the practical difficulties of operating a company during the crisis, and the industry will pick up a lot of threads from your inputs and then probably can face the challenge much more courageously. Okay, now I'll take on Mr. Sathish Ottalingam from CEO of Sienna ECAD Technologies. Sathish has been with the design technology of our PCB for over 4 decades and has built a strong team to deliver quality design services to international market. He has integrated design to manufacture to develop prototypes leading to large-scale manufacturing in India. Sienna ECAD is one of India's leading PCB analysis design engineering company located in Bangalore. The parent companies, Sienna Corporation and Avalon Technologies, are electronics manufacturing services companies based in USA with facilities in Atlanta, Fremont, Chennai, and Bangalore. Okay, I request Mr. Sathish to take on.
Thank you, Mr. Thiyagarajan. Given the shortage of time, I'll jump quickly into presenting.
Thank you.
From a design perspective. We heard great talks on the manufacturing components, and I would like to take you through quickly on the design side. This is the ramp we saw pre-COVID. We were all set, being one of the largest printed circuit board engineering team in India. We were geared for this growth. We had this office operational with 150 engineers specifically on board design. But this, as everybody said, is just thrown off where we would be 20. I hope this ramp will be fairly stable, probably because it's more of software. We can work remote. And then we would, hopefully by 2021, we would see the ramp coming in. But as of now, I'll just take you through what is design involved in a product development for many of you. PCB design, as you can see in the slide, forms a very important part in a product development. The team members work along with the board design, associate engineer to realize a product. And what are the different facets of design that we do? We do the libraries, we do the complex layouts. This is exactly, although we have done up to 72-layer boards, 56-layer boards in India, so we have the complete capability in India to do this. But I have just put this slide where you say, this is, Mr. Sunil talked about manufacturing these boards. These were actually designed in India, an 8-layer board, very quickly for the ventilator. So we have the capability to quickly ramp up and do a board layout design. We also have to look at DFF, design for fabrication, design for assembly, design for test, and then also do a lot of analysis. So engineering task. The good thing about this design industry is when you get into it, you can cater. This is widespread. So across automotive, we talked about automotive, we talked about medical, we talked about communication, industrial. Now, what this helps us is we can quickly move if there is a dip in one of the segments due to various reasons. We can quickly go on. Like as Mr. Sunil said, during the COVID period, we got the government approvals to operate our design centers. We moved all the design, invariably 80% of our engineers into their homes. We made all the necessary interconnect efficiency checkings, moving our software tools from basically being a server at office to individual systems, design anywhere options. We enabled all the engineers, and we could complete some of the most complex boards for BL, for GE, and many other customers. And so this is a plus which I want to bring it, that being a board designer, you can cater across the segments because you have one standard that is the IPC design standard. So you can adapt it to various segments. And so what is the post-COVID scenario for us? we will have short-term impact today. In my office, I have, as I speak, out of the 150 people, I would have about 20 engineers. But it's not that 20 engineers are working. All my team is working, supporting customers globally today. And remote monitoring, efficiency monitoring is the key going forward. Software vendors have been great. They immediately moved all the server license models to anywhere license models, no cost. And work from, I think we need to look at work from home security policies, ISO standards. I think the security, data security is going to be a big challenge, which we'll be working in the next months to make sure that we are robust. Then the tools for multi-designer collaboration. We had tools, but these were not looked at seriously before. You can put a team of about 10 engineers to work on a single project. In-house technology development already started in India a year pre-COVID, but I think we will be fast-tracked now with our dependence on India to do it. We are already done the boards for IIT. They already done the 5G test beds. They are going to do some pilot runs, supercomputing in a big way. So I think there is a need for more qualified post-COVID PCB design to do things here in India. And we would also see increased design activity from US, Europe to India, with the push, like all my other panelists told me, is also going to reflect on the design side. So I see a minimum, what we are running at about 15% software, more software coming in every year. Maybe not this year, maybe next year we will see more than like 20, 25% of growth. What's the risk involved? Definitely, yeah. The tools will be more artificial intelligence based algorithms. These are going to take out most of the basic design tasks we do today. They're going to automate a lot of stuff on that area. So we need to be sensitive. We need to upskill to areas, which I'll be talking some of the areas which we need to focus on. This will give you a kind of, this, and a project, if you want to put people, these are the different team members you need to put in. So this requires that you have a very robust team. PCB design is just not you throw anything across the wall, you get an output. This requires working with the fabrication team, the CAM team, the functional test, NPI production, SI, PI team. So this throws a lot of technical challenges in skilling. Basic skilling includes communication, teamwork. Project durations can be 50 hours to 1,000 hours plus on a project to manage it. And customers also look at turnkey because they don't want to go through all this. They want one entity to look at from design to prototype PCB, including assembly at a major location. I also talked about what going forward, what are the, how do we ramp up these needs? We have enabled some colleges to, in the 7th semester and 8th semester, to do some PCB design as electives. I think in Tamil Nadu, and we are also working with Skill Development Institute in India to see how these programs can be rolled out. So we have more manpower coming in. You have a channel by which after your diploma bachelor's, you get into trainees. So this is also done in Bharat Electronics. We have a lot of trainees. Also IPC, CID plus certifications for such engineers will really help because they can understand the processes, the standards that they need to understand in design. And 3 to 4 years, I think there is a high potential career growth. And if you want to go on to do masters, there are specialized areas like signal integrity, power integrity. Today in India, we are doing 200 gigabit per second speeds. And these are top of the line boards which will run today. These will be the norm going forward to have capability to look at your reflections, your crosstalk, your running power at 0.75 volts on the board. So these are some of the things, EMI, you follow the rules, you look at analysis. So all these analysis on the boards are very critical. And 2 to 3 years, I think those engineers are very much preferred by the industry. So this is the path which, a typical path we are seeing going forward. And quickly to end it, I represent Sienna ECAD, part of Sienna group of companies. We take a customer direct from PCB design right up to a complete product build. The only thing we don't do is bareboard PCB fabrication and some amount of tooling. but otherwise we are vertically integrated to deliver a complete product, and I take care of the design group within Sienna. So thanks for the opportunity, and thanks to the team.
Thank you, Mr. Sathish. I think the design segment is the one that is going to drive the electronics manufacturing in India. Unless we are going to develop products locally, we cannot manufacture, because we cannot, at the same time, we cannot design the boards and send it outside for fabrication. Both has to be locally integrated. This is the objective. I think there's a lot of opportunity in this sector to go forward. I quickly have some few questions because we are already 10 minutes over time. For Mr. Ramakrishna. Worldwide inclusivity in area of medical electronics. What is your expectation from Indian design and component manufacturing industry, specifically manufacturing, to support this sector in particular? Mr. Ramakrishna.
Yeah, it's a very broad question. So I would try to keep it, to think of. As I talked about, see, in this, look at the COVID situation, right? Everybody want, whichever the designs are available, they want scaling it much faster. I heard about Medtronic, it's a company in China. They're able to scale up the production in a week's time from 1,000 to, I think, 10,000 and 20,000, right? So how do you support the scalability in a short time is one of the important things from the manufacturing point of view. From design point of view, if I come to PCB industry, I mean, how quick we could get this, the materials and testing, everything is done locally. Today, I think the fundamental thing is the bare PCB material. I'm not sure how much we import, how much we locally make those materials. And that may be one of the reasons why the scalability becomes important. The quality, the medical grade requires quality because, I mean, unlike mobile phones, medical industry still use every machine more than 5 to 6 years. You need to make sure people tend to use 10 years plus. Now, when people want to use that long period, right? So the PCBs and the designs what we make are the reliable enough and safe enough to use for a larger time. The quality comes in point, okay? So first thing is availability will quickly support the design houses locally. And B, when you come to productization, do we have the scalability? And second thing is reliable designs and material. So there are a couple of areas we could think through for this broader question.
Okay, thank you. There's a question to Mr. Vinod Sharma. Capital incentives and subsidies be given to existing units who can diversify into produce raw material for PCB manufacturing components as backward integration, because the funding is a very big issue at this point of time. What should be the way to go forward?
Yeah. Under the MSIP scheme, you would have noticed that raw material for components found a place for the capital investments. The current spec scheme does not clearly cover raw material for components,
yes,
to the best of my understanding, and that's something that we are appealing with the government to add it to the specs notification, because I think the intention of the government and the objective is to develop a whole supply chain without which we cannot be competitive. Definitely that would be the thing. I also saw from the chat box and some of the questions around PLI and how it is not applicable to components because of the threshold being very high, as I mentioned earlier. I want to just attempt an answer to that. The threshold is extremely high, and as I said, we are already in touch with the ministry and the minister himself, appealing to him that, like in the case of mobile phones, where the threshold is 1,000 crores, and for Indian mobile phone manufacturers, the threshold is brought down to 200 crores. That's 20%. We have made a similar appeal for components, that the 100 crores should also be made 20 crores over 3 years. And let's hope that they listen to us. In the meanwhile, however, what I would strongly recommend is that we need to start thinking of ourselves in consortium or inflation, because whether it's 20 crores or 100 crores, that's not really in our control. But I think if some of us come together, along with maybe some of the raw material suppliers, there is a way out where a full cluster can become a PCB cluster, where the government will support us with the entire effluent treatment part of it, where some of the state governments are actually beginning to compete with each other in order to get that investment. So wherever that comfort level is, I would say a body like IPCA could take the lead there, get some like-minded people and start looking at this in a very tangible way. My sense is that please understand that mobile phone business industry has actually got not only the 20% duty earlier, has now got a 48,000 crore rupee scheme. That's in this industry or any sector, we have never been able to get this kind of money. We need to understand what's behind that. I think what is behind that, of course, good lobbying, advocacy, all that is all right. But is the fact that the government began to believe in the success of that industry. The players have gone together and created a story which the government has believed in, and I'm happy to see that they are performing. Year over year, our exports have gone up last year of mobile phones and accessories. So my sense is this, that I was reading, for example, if you try to at least from a $6 billion PCB, you want to aim at least $1 billion, which is 4 times what you are today. If that kind of a paper is submitted to the government saying, here are 4 or 5 or 10 players, they want to get together, we want to aim at $1 billion. These are the 3 things we need from you. I think things like tweaking the threshold in a PLI would not be difficult.
Thank you. To Mr. Sunil Banwari, the question from Indian PCB manufacturing industry has improved a lot in the decade, but still needs some improvement to get accepted by many good system-based companies. What do you recommend the few best practices that we should follow to improve quality and also the level of expertise that we need to meet this demand?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I think what we have learned, so I think maybe just to clarify a little bit about in AT&S, we actually, in India, we export 95% of our product to Europe. So it's going to the top tier OEMs in automotive and industrial. So we have shown that in India, we can produce the quality and technology level which is needed for the best in class requirement. And again, as far as quality and technology, I think technology, again, we were fortunate in the fact that we are part of a global conglomerate, so we didn't have to develop much locally. But as far as quality, I think the same rules which apply in any industry apply even more so in the PCB industry. I actually come from the semiconductor industry. I spent 20 years in the semiconductor industry for Intel and then a few other companies. And the things which they already do in the semiconductor industry are at the extreme end of what the PCB industry needs to start doing. If you take basic things like process control, I think that's an area where many of these industries are much more advanced than what we do in the PCB industry. I think as we start, and if you look at the PCB industry also from a technology perspective, if you look at the dimensions, the lines, the tracing, the ratio of the dimensions we are tracking in the PCB industry is beginning to approach semiconductor dimensions. So it's no surprise that the same things which work well in the semiconductor industry from a process control and quality are really what is needed to succeed in the PCB industry. And I think that the more we focus on process control, I fundamentally believe that's really the best way to achieve the quality which is expected. The second piece of quality, I think, which is important, is the material quality. I think in India, especially since we do mostly single and double-sided PCBs, they are not demanding on the material quality. And in fact, they will just go on price alone, which forces a supplier to use the lowest quality laminates, for instance. I think if the customers understood better in India, especially, the differences between a high top class laminate versus a cheap laminate and the TG, which cannot really even be tested, then I think it would make a big difference. But the big names understand it, and they actually specify. All the big names we work with specify what laminate we should use. They specify, there's only 3 companies in the world which make the best laminates. They specify them. So the controlling the material quality is a very important piece as well. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Sunil. Okay, I have a question for Mr. Dinesh. we don't see any vehicle development in areas of small transportation vehicles and then, two-wheelers and so on and so forth. Do you see that coming up? Because that's where we see a big market, because as it is projected, the e-vehicles are very expensive and it's outside the reach of a very common person. And it is something like, people would like to take it as a status. But where we feel there's a big market opportunity, will it come for these small transportation vehicles and, mopeds and things like that?
Yeah, Mr. Thiyagarajan, yeah, I will like to answer in two phases of this. For this question. As Indian manufacturing industry is saying, especially in the EV, there is a huge dependency on China for every components, which Indian manufacturing industries or Indian OEMs are gearing up for, and that is really elevating the cost. And that's how the same cost elevation or escalation is getting passed on to the customer, the end customer. Yeah, but the thought process, which is going across the Indian OEM is they want to make first maybe the taxis segment little operational using this EV technology. Next, slightly gearing up for the personal segment, or our the personally or individual driven the vehicles. The reason behind that is very simple. The kind of technology, the kind of the longevity or the kind of drive cycle which is required, for everyone. When I buy EV vehicles and I start feeling like, as the way I'm driving non-EV or IC engine vehicle, I should be able to drive. Can you really give that kind of technology? It is still in the making, at least for Indian kind of needs, or the cost what our customer or Indian OEMs are looking for to build. Yes, in bits and pieces, these segments are being talked about now. Two-wheelers anyway, I think there are a lot of effort which has gone by keeping pool of two-wheelers just outside metro station, or all the public spot, just people let them use. But somehow that usage scale is not bringing that essential business case for all the OEMs or manufacturers to get into that. It may take a little time, and yes, before this BS6 migration has again in India, BS6 migration again has kind of slightly phased down this EV push in India again, because people have spent huge, the whole ecosystem spent huge. You never know how long people take to recover that money and completely migrate it. But yes, industry-wide effort is going on, and the technology build is going on. In bits and pieces, every segment is being tracked now to migrate to EV.
Thank you, Dinesh, for the input. I have one question to Mr. Sathish. With this, we'll not take more questions on the Q&A session. In India, we have the best designers, and they are working for the best companies worldwide. Still, we lack in product and system design. What do you think is a connectivity problem in forward and backward integration in terms of product development? Why we don't develop new products?
A very valid, good question, Thiyagarajan. Having worked last more than 25 years with hardware engineers in India, we, rightly said, we have the capability. If we are today designing supercomputing boards, if we are designing the next gen 5G technology in India, what is lacking, I would say first, is more from because an electronic product is just not PCB. It is a culmination of mechanical, you have cables inside, you have all those interconnects which make a complete product. So number one, we are lacking on industrial design. A final product goes out to the world market, it's how you package it. I think that's an area which we need to catch up with in terms of packaging. There are last several years, I've seen companies in India which can even design a mobile phone package designed for Samsung. So there are talents available. I think that's one area. The second area is product certification. Although we have come a long way in the last few years, earlier product development would take a year plus, but today we are talking about months to get a product in, because the tools are so enabled today. You can do a lot of verification before you actually get into certification mode. So I think we have come a long way from where we were a couple of years back, but yet if you see the world benchmark of releasing products, I think we still have a long way to go. And that would, I'm 100% confident that we have the necessary resources, the skill set, but I think what we also need to do is how we can enable the ecosystem, like how quickly the PCBs can be made available to the hardware engineers, how quickly you can get the test lab set up for the engineers, how quickly you can run the, your FCC certification. Medical is a long way. You may take a lot of time to get a product certified, but there are other products which you can, like wearables, which you can look at quickly getting into the market. I think you need to look at, needs a lot of support from various supply chains, EMS companies, design companies, the whole system to work together to catch up. But I'm confident that this COVID will give us a lot of those insights where we want to do such, and we will see in the next 4 to 5 years, we will be making our own supercomputing boards, we'll be making our own 5G products, and these all will be made in India.
Thank you very much. I think it's quite encouraging to hear that. I have to stop the QA at this point of time because we are quite overshoot the time slot. As I said, IPCA has been encouraging the skills development area. We have been interacting with multiple education institutions and ESSCI and others to bring the PCB design manufacturing technology to the younger fraternity of students. And we will see the result of that in short time so that we have more skills available in this area. Now I request Mr. Kushal Patel, President of IPCA, to give the concluding remarks and then thank all the panelists and the viewers. Mr. Patel.
Thank you, Thiyagarajan ji. I would like to thank our esteemed panelists, Mr. Chowdhry, Mr. Banwari, Mr. Sharma, Mr. Ottalingam, Mr. Dinesh, and Mr. Ramakrishna for taking time out and sharing their views on the future of PCB and electronics during and post-COVID age. I would also like to thank Barbara, Tanmay, and the whole of MMI team for helping us set up this webinar on such a short notice. And finally, thank you, Thiyagarajan ji and Amulya ji, for making this webinar happen. These are difficult times, and people are anxious about how things are going to pan out next week, next month, next year. I don't think anyone can have a definitive answer right now. But such webinars, interactions with industry leaders and learned people would definitely help us in getting a positive outlook and try to plan for future hurdles. So thank you all you guys, and I'm looking forward to more interactions with most of you, just to learn how will we facing the new challenges that are coming forth every now and then. So thank you everyone.
Thank you. Some of the questions that's not answered, we will get from the panelists later and then share with the people who have raised these points. As due to paucity of time, we have to restrict. And especially we thank all the members who have logged in to view this exchange and the panelists. Thank you very much. With this, I close this webinar.
Thank you. Thank you, Thiyagarajan.
Thank you.
Chance for you to bolster your security controls, have a proper security program, and more than that, 4 areas I strongly believe cybersecurity priorities will change. One is the entire cloud computing will take a huge fillip.
There is another program that's coming up. Okay, that's